The psalm that I read this morning, or we prayed this morning, in fact, which has various overtones, if you remember, with another type of story in the Bible, right? Yet you have made him a little lower than God. You have given all things into his hands, given him dominion, right, over the fish of the sea. It sounds like very similar to creation, first creation story, right? If you remember that first creation story, 3 levels of creation, and things that can occupy those 3 levels. And whenever God sees what happens in each day, God says that it is. In other words, God sees the light, and the light does what the light is supposed to do. And that's good, when things do what they're supposed to do. Anyone that's ever gone out and tried to start a car and it doesn't do it, you know that that's not good, right? But whenever things do what they're supposed to do, that's good. Whenever God sees the dry land appear, it's good. Whenever God sees plants, that's good. Sun, moon, and stars, that's good. Fish and birds, it's good. Land animals, it's good. Human beings, all our multiplicity, right? As soon as human beings are created, God looks at, not the human beings, God looks at all that he had created, and behold, it was very good. Well, of course it's very good, because everything is conforming to the purpose for which it is made. That's the way in which that first creation story is outlined, and that's the vision it presents of the world that we live in. It's a beautiful, balanced, harmonic cosmos. Every place has a thing, everything has a place, and everything's important. That vision, that beautiful, beautiful, this is so ironic, that beautiful, beautiful vision that's present in that first creation story that we love is exactly the same vision of creation that Leviticus has. Same exact vision. Leviticus is going to talk about a lot of things that aren't right. But in fact, Leviticus is a very small book. Because what Leviticus does is that it assumes the vast majority of everything that we see in this classroom, everything that we see in the created order, everything that we see in our lives, including ourselves, is not just good, it's very good. And because it's very good, Leviticus is going to say, it's clean. So far, so good? Cool. There are, however, some things that are clean, that are special. And they're special not just in and of themselves. They're special because they're set apart. And specifically, they're set apart for the worship of God. And those things, they can be people, they can be buildings, tents, they can be implements, they can be days, times, there can be lots of different things, but those things that are set apart, that are somehow involved in the worship of God, those things are called holy. So they're clean things that are set apart for the worship of God. They can be altars, right? So far, so good? Cool. So this is the reason why this is called a holy place and this is called a holy of holies. That's really set apart for the worship of God. So far, so good? However, we all live in the real world. There are some things that kind of don't correspond to the purpose for which they were made. There's something about them that there's something wrong. And when I say wrong, I'm not talking about unethical. I'm not talking about actions. I'm talking about the lab results come back from the doctor, and there's something suspicious. There's There's something that doesn't conform to the purpose for which it was made. So far, so good? And we live in the real world, and we know that there are certain things that don't conform to the purpose for which they are made. And those things are obviously unclean. There's something about them that you need to watch, you need to pay attention to. And while we're on unclean, I'll go ahead and make this so, maybe I should have made this at the very beginning. One of the presuppositions about the book of Leviticus that I think turn people off of it are that people think that they can ignore it or that it's ignorable or whatever, is that the presupposition is that what the main point of Leviticus is trying to tell you what to do. Don't do this, do that. Don't do that, do this. Don't do that, do this. Don't plant your field with 2 different types of seed. Don't wear clothes with 2 different types of thread. Don't eat shrimp. Don't. It's trying to tell you what to do, right? You should love your neighbor as yourself, right? That's Leviticus 19. It's not Jesus, it's Leviticus 19. He's quoting. Clear about that. Right? It's trying to tell you what to do. Bull. Absolutely not. I mean, it does. There are things in it that tell you what to do and what not to do. But that's not the main point of Leviticus. What the main point of Leviticus is to not to tell you what to do and what not to do. The main point of Leviticus is to tell you the way things are. This is the way things are. Practically everything that you see is good and beautiful and clean. Practically everything you see conforms to the purpose for which God made it. And that's a wonderful, very good, beautiful thing. And there are some things that are set aside for the worship of God. Those things are holy. However, there are certain things in life that you got to pay attention to, because there's something not right about it. And those things are unclean. Consistently in Leviticus, the things that are unclean are things that, this is the way I like to put it, things that are unclean are things that tend toward death. Things that tend toward death. Right? Again, it's not that they don't work because, and it goes against my values, or they don't work, it's unclean because I think it's weird, or, no, consistently in the book of Leviticus, things are unclean because in the worldview of Leviticus, they tend toward death. It doesn't mean that they kill you, but you need to pay attention to them. Gospel of Luke, right? She's walking through the town. There's a woman who's had a hemorrhage, 12 years. That's just not right. I think we would all agree on that, right? That's just not right. And so she is called, she's unclean. That does not mean that she's evil. It doesn't mean that we cast her out. It doesn't mean that she's secluded. It doesn't mean that she's somehow done something wrong. I mean, Jesus put that in great. It doesn't mean that she's somehow bad or wicked or anything like this. It means that there's something going on in her body, in herself, that tends toward death. And the reason why we call her unclean isn't because we don't value her. The reason why we call her unclean is because we actually value her, and we don't want her to go over that precipice. If we, in our screwed up worldview, thought that it was perfectly fine for a woman to be hemorrhaging all the time for 12 years, we wouldn't care. But it's because we value her. That's why we pay attention to her. I mean, in our own culture, there are buildings full of people that we single out because they are tending toward death. They're called hospitals. And you go in the hospital, And of course, all of those people are evil and wicked, and there's something wrong with them, I mean like morally. No, the reason why they're there is because we value them. We appreciate them. We appreciate their life, and we want to make sure that that life continues and that they do not tend toward death. And therefore we do everything in our power to make sure that that reverses. So far so good? Cool. With unclean things, there are two types of unclean things. There are permanently unclean and there are temporarily unclean. Permanently unclean things are just aberrant. Nobody knows where they came from. Pigs. I don't know. It doesn't, shoot. Yeah, I mean, I don't know where they came from. Because they're kind of like land animals. But they don't conform to the way land animals normally are. Because land animals have hooves, and pigs have like hard little toes sticking out. I don't know where it came from, and so it causes me a problem. Permanently unclean. Shrimp, same thing.
No hooves.
Huh?
No hooves.
No horse. Yeah.
No hooves on the shrimp.
Oh, hooves. Yeah, no hooves on the. Well, a shrimp is kind of like a water animal, right? But it doesn't have fins. I don't know what to do with that. Here's the thing with permanently unclean things in Leviticus, with one exception. With one exception. Human beings are never permanently unclean. With one exception, human beings are never permanently unclean. And that one exception is
Dead body. Dead body.
a corpse. Because obviously, that's someone that has tended toward death and has gone over the edge. And one exception in history, that isn't reversible, right? You go over there, boom, you fall into that box. And we'll deal with Ecclesiastes in the spring, but I can tell you, brothers and sisters, every single person here is going to wind up there. Sorry, spoiler alert. Everybody's going to wind up in this box eventually. But, with the exception of a corpse, human beings are never permanently unclean. Which means that they're temporarily unclean. And that's a wonderful thing about this whole thing, and that is you see the lines. In fact, those lines are not solid. Because this isn't just boxes. It's actually like Macy's escalators. And that is you can go up and down on this chart. Things that are holy can become just plain old clean. Not profane, not wicked. They can just become normal things, right? Again, we do this. You do this in the Methodist Church, whether you realize it or not, right? You can have a Methodist church that has been dedicated to the worship of God. And for some reason that congregation doesn't meet anymore, and we want to turn this into an apartment building. There is a ritual in the Methodist Church for taking something that is holy, that is a church building, and making it not wicked. You just make it a normal building. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, sure. There are things that are clean, obviously, that become temporarily unclean. Right? Right. There are things that are clean that become temporarily unclean. There are things that are temporarily unclean that actually become clean again. This happens all the time. It's called getting well, right? Happens every day of our lives, right? And there are obviously things that are clean that can be dedicated to the worship of God. Up and down, up and down, up and down. So far, so good. And in fact, things that are holy, well, I was going to say this. things that are holy never just become temporarily unclean. You've got to go through the clean state. That's not right, though. Is that something that is holy can become that. And that's kind of scary when that happens. Yeah, that's kind of scary when that happens. But the whole point here is that it goes up and down and up and down and up and down. Things that are clean, things that are temporarily unclean, that become clean. In the book of Leviticus, there's a technical term for that process, and it's cleanse. For obvious reasons. So far, so good. Things that are clean can become holy. And the word that's used in Leviticus is two different types of words. Sanctify and consecrate. It's the same word in Hebrew. We have two different words, but it means the same thing. Sanctify. And you Methodists know nothing about that. That's all you think about. At least used to. But anyway, things that are clean can become sanctified or consecrated, which means that they become dedicated to the worship of God. So far, so good? Cool. Things that are holy can become clean. This is what we call, and again, it's not, again, these words get so overloaded. This is what we call profane. Profane something, which isn't bad. This is what you do to a church building when you make it into apartments, right? You profane it. You make it just clean. It's not bad. It's just a process. God's name, yes? It's something holy, right? It's one of the big 10. You don't use that one bad, right? You don't use it wrongly, right? But if you do use it wrongly, that is, you use that name just like every other word. You use that name, I don't know, when you're trying to express your anger or something like that, as you're using it just like any other word. And words are good, but you use that name like any other word. That's what we call profanity, yes? So profanity isn't using bathroom language. It's using God's name in a way that makes that name not holy anymore. Things that are clean, obviously, can become temporarily unclean. And that's called what? Pollute. Thank you. Things can become polluted. And again, that's just the word that Leviticus, or that's the word that gets translated for Leviticus. Pollute. Here's the funny thing, is that things that are holy can become clean, things that are clean can become temporarily unclean. And as I've said before, the structure of the world as we know it is that it's a slow slide for all of us. I mean, it really is. I'm sorry. I'm not really sorry. It's just the way it is. There's nothing to be sorry about. We're going to slide down, and eventually we'll wind up here. And that's just the way it is. And in fact, and when we get around to Leviticus in the spring, that's actually a really beautiful thing, because it means we have very limited time. And the funny thing about limited time is it becomes very valuable time. It's a time full of meaning and purpose. If we live forever, what was it Mark Twain said? There are people that wish for eternity that don't know what to do with themselves on a rainy Sunday afternoon. The funny thing is that things that are temporarily unclean become clean, things that are clean that become holy. You can't do that by yourself. If you are temporarily unclean and you become clean, that has to be acknowledged, that has to be seen, that process has to be done in community. It has to be done through ritual. It has to be acknowledged by people. It's not just something you can do yourself. You can get well, but you can't become clean. And obviously, clean things that become holy, things that are sanctified or consecrated, those things happen in community through rituals. Consistently, things that are clean that become holy, these rituals that bring that about, consistently use blood. Things that are temporarily unclean that become clean, consistently use water, which is obvious for cleanse. is kind of cool.